brain cancer is the biggest killer of under 40s in the UK, but only 1% of cancer research funding goes towards fighting it.
Scottish swimming champion Archie Goodburn was diagnosed with a rare form of the disease at just 22 years old. And he's fighting for the approval of a drug that he says has given him his life back. Good morning to you. Thanks for coming in to talk about
happy to be here.
this. And also, I think, you know, to raise awareness of this, because I guess a lot of people wouldn't know how big a killer this is, actually, and what needs to be done to sort of tackle that. How are you at the moment?
I'm doing okay, you know, as we've just seen, you know, it's all thanks to do with this new drug that's currently going through the regulatory processes here in the UK. But things aren't looking too promising for it, and I'm kind of here to talk about that and the wider issue and the precedent that that's setting across brain cancer and the treatment for all patients involved. You know, brain cancer is such a massive killer, kills more men under the age of 70 than prostate cancer, or more women under the age of 35 than breast cancer, and more children than leukemia. And the general public awareness for it is just nowhere near, you know, that kind of extent.
No.
And then the UK funding, as we've discussed, it isn't anywhere near to that either.
Before we get onto the issue with this new drug, can you take us? A lot of people, you know, won't know this stat and won't have heard about the symptoms. What was the early moment for you when you realised something's seriously wrong here and you need to get properly checked up?
I'm a slightly abnormal example in the way that my presentation was in fairness slightly different, but. But it is generally seizures and headaches. My seizures began in December 2023 at the European Short Course Championships, and I'd actually just broken the Scottish record. And as I was walking back, I began to kind of feel this sense that my whole consciousness is receding into, you know, the back of my head.
Gosh.
This sense of nausea, the left-sided numbness, and this kind of this just absolutely undeniable feeling that something was really, really wrong. But, you know, I pushed through that competition, and these feelings would only last a few minutes. But throughout kind of the next few months, they kind of began to grow. And actually in December, I visited A&E and was discharged off the back of that with potential early adult onset epilepsy. But there was no follow-up made for that.
What it was to begin with, is that right?
Yeah, no, you're correct. So most seizures, people will tend to actually lose consciousness, and you know, it's a very obvious spasm. But focal seizures present quite commonly in the low-grade glioma kind of category that I have, and it's called low-grade, but it doesn't mean low risk or anything like that. You know, low-grade gliomas inevitably progress to higher grades. They're incurable, and in people like me that are young at diagnosis, they are effectively a terminal diagnosis.
Right. I mean, you know, hearing you speak now, looking at you, you know, you look absolutely, you know, incredible and dealing with it. But I know that you feel very anxious, don't you, a lot of the time? Massively
anxious. You know, brain cancer is constantly reported as one of the most, if not the most, you know, highly reported for depression and anxiety across all types of cancer. And you know, for us, things like Vorsten provide hope. And hope is something we really don't have a lot of in the brain cancer community. I call it a community, it's weird to call it that, but it is, because we have to be there for each other, because you know, treatments aren't there for us. So we're there for each other, and Vorsten is providing this hope, and it just seems that this hope's been taken away from us at the moment.
It must be really hard for you to come to terms with this, and I know that because of the type of brain tumour it has, the treatments are difficult, aren't they? Just explain, you know, what this means and why this drug is so important.
No, so brain cancer, it grows, it's called a glioma, when a cancerous tumour in the brain, a glioma, and they grow like tree roots. So they're very difficult to operate on. Neurosurgeons are phenomenal, but they have a very hard time taking out primary brain tumours, like gliomas. And mine particularly, an oligodendroglioma, literally means tree root in Latin. And so, unfortunately, operability is not an option for me.
Because they might damage brain tissue if they did that.
100%. There's plenty of there's quite a lot of healthy tissue within my tumours themselves, because it grows through. And my largest tumour is about 10 by 4 centimetres. I have another one about 4 by 4 centimetres by my eye, and another one at the front right of my head. And none of these can be removed. So the only other options after my diagnosis are, you know, radiotherapy and chemotherapy. And the radiotherapy would leave me, you know, quite cognitively disabled and on declining path over time. It's not something that just ends when you finish treatment. The cognitive decline continues after treatment for the time that you continue to live. And even the chemotherapy comes with a fairly high risk of a secondary malignancy, which would come back in quite an aggressive form of secondary.
So how did you get this new form of treatment? How were you able to get hold of that then?
Well, just very fortunately for me, off the back of some breakthroughs that have been seen at the turn of the century in leukemia, thanks to the larger funding that body of cancer gets compared to brain cancer, they'd seen some kind of targeted therapy breakthroughs.
Right.
And that had kind of sparked some debates for, could these types of things be used in brain cancer, because there's a shared mutation that can be targeted. So vorasidenib was developed off the back of that because it can target the brain through something called the blood-brain barrier, which is a fairly challenging clinical obstacle for brain cancer. And vorasidenib was just finishing its clinical trials and beginning to be rolled out as part of an expanded access program. And after a very tough battle with the help of my family and my support network, we were able to access an expanded access program, which was being rolled out through the Marsden.
Okay. And so we're running out of time, but just very quick. So the issue now is that the NHS, or NICE, who regulate the treatments that what might be placed in the NHS, they are still yet to decide whether they're going to allow this drug to be available on NHS.
Yeah.
Is that right?
And I'm here to push to make sure that people can get access to the drug, because if people don't get access to this drug, their lives are inevitably going to be short, and their quality of life is going to massively decline. And this sets a wider precedent for the brain cancer community and treatments that are like that, and decisions made within that.
And why do you think that they are hesitant at the moment? Because there is a fear, you're concerned that they may not push this through. Why do you think that is?
Well, first of all, I'd just like to say, the most common type of brain cancer has a prognosis of 12 months. So we really need to kind of push for anything we can get within the brain cancer community. NICE appears to be hesitant to approve this drug at the moment because they can't assess the full kind of economic model that's going to be required for vorasidenib, because the trials are being so successful. Patients are being on this drug for a long time and outliving kind of what they could normally expect for a prognosis. And so the NHS are struggling to come to terms with how much they're going to have to spend to preserve people's lives.
Let's have a listen, because we've got a spokesperson for NICE. They've said we need to consider the evidence of a treatment's clinical and cost effectiveness in our decision-making, and there is currently not enough evidence to show if this drug extends how long people with the condition live. But as we said, this isn't their final decision. Guidance is yet to be published, isn't it? But I guess, for you, this is...
So what's really being said there is people aren't dying fast enough for us to approve this drug.
So it's working really successfully?
Yeah, phenomenally. The other treatments, I would have to sacrifice my health to take this, but vorasidenib allows me to live my life, fulfill my dreams, contribute to society, and a drug like that is key to my future, and loving those around me, and to see that quote there coming up for they're not being able to approve a drug because they can't quantify how much it's going to and this is just seen universally across the community. I've lost friends my age to the tumour, to similar tumours, and yeah, to the fact that the regulatory criteria is that we need to know how long someone's going to be on a drug to approve it is not good enough, because we're going to miss out on a whole generation of patients here.
Archie, it's just so inspiring. You're so strong, and the fact that you're shedding a tear now tells me how much you're holding inside, and you're being so incredibly brave. And I just hope that your message is being heard by those people.
And I hope that the brain tumour community feel represented by what I've said here today, because it's really not good enough, and we demand change. And I'd like to ask the public to sign our petition and turn terminal into treatable, so that this issue can be raised to the government, and we can make change that's needed now.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming in and for talking about this so
You're amazing,
openly and honestly.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you, guys.
Take care, look after yourself. And just to say, if you have been affected by any of the issues we've been discussing, you can find advice and support at itv.com helplines.